I want to welcome to the program somebody you all know. You know her very well. Her name has been omnipresent in politics over the last few years, and she's now going to be the next governor of the great state of Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be with some friendly people in the media.
I mean, yeah, we're not exactly media. We're more like propaganda, but it is kind of nice to do an interview every once in a while where you're not getting pinned down on every horrible thing in the world, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, I didn't mean to lump you in with the dirty side there.
Yeah. Well, if anybody knows it, it's you. Let's start with your campaign. Listen, because of your success, because of how successful your campaign's going, you don't read a lot about it in the national media because, you're kicking butt and taking names down there. But how are things going?
They're going really well. I mean, so far we haven't been kicked out of any restaurant since we've been in Arkansas, which is amazing. And, we had an incredible showing in the primary back in May, cleared the field with 87%, and now, running full throttle in the general and have a pretty good lead, but taking nothing for granted, keeping our foot on the gas. It's been pretty overwhelming in a good way, the response we've had from every corner of the state. And it's really been exciting and fun to go back to so many Arkansas communities that I grew up going to with my dad. Yeah. And it's just been truly an incredible year and a half on the campaign.
No, it's awesome. Well, before we get into the issues, I do want to talk a little bit about how you were brought up into this world of politics, because I don't think there's ever been a candidate of any office who's more well-trained to run a campaign. Like you said, you grew up working on your dad's races. How do you think is that just like born in your blood, or you just get really excited about it at a young age and just suck with it all the way through?
I absolutely loved being on the campaign with my dad when I was a kid. He ran for office for the first time when I was 9. And as you know, the campaign circuit, particularly in the South and in a rural state like Arkansas, you're hitting all these like small town parades and festivals. And my older brothers and I, we would go to the festivals, and my dad would give us a huge stack of push cards, and we would pass them out. And once we were finished, we could come back. And back then he would give us $5. I tell him all the time how cheap he must have been that we only got $5 for that much work. But $5 back in the day would get you, a thing of cotton candy and a ride on a tilt-a-whirl, which was pretty fun growing up and hitting like the rural parade circuit.
I love that. $5. I mean, he was watching the campaign cash, right? It's a responsible politician.
Don't defend him. He was cheap, and we remind him of it every day.
I love it. Well, your dad continues to be an incredibly talented man. I'm sure you learned a lot. More than anything, what's always exuded every one of his campaigns and just his media personality is his love of people and being around people. That's clearly been passed on to you.
Yeah. And that was one of the things like I loved on the campaign is watching my dad. I thought I had working on his campaign one of the best jobs in the world because I loved the campaign aspect and I got to do it with my dad. And to me, there was not much better than that. And like you said, he just has this kind of happy warrior spirit. He genuinely loves people. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And probably one of the most fun parts of campaigning are the incredible people that you meet all around the country as you go into these different places.
Yeah, no, and the ability to take their stories with you, which is something he's done so well. I got to imagine that those young experiences you had are about as close to a master's degree in all things Arkansas as you can get, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't have an official master's degree, so I'm going to now print out my own certificate and say that you gave me one.
Oh, no question about it. I mean, if you do as many campaigns as you've done in the way that your dad did them, I mean, you know every corner store, right?
Absolutely. We know every great little restaurant. In fact, that's one of our team's favorite things to do is find the best kind of off the beaten path local food in an area and go in and, just visit with people while we're there and enjoy good local food. And that's one of the things the South does very well.
Oh, incredible.
Now, the only problem is it's like one of the least healthy things in the world. It's not like we're making salads here. We love anything that you can deep fry, and then we want to cover it in some kind of very high calorie sauce. So trying to stay like a tiny bit healthy on the campaign trail may be one of our biggest challenges these days.
You got to walk the heck out of the parade route.
Absolutely. Yeah. My kids now, it's really funny to see kind of this new generation out on the campaign, and they're sort of experiencing a lot of what I did growing up, but they love a good parade. And at first I thought, wow, my kids are so proud. They're like wearing their gear. They're cheering for their mom. And then I realized, I look over after the first parade and I'm cleaning out my kids' pockets, and my son, George, who's 7, had about 800 wrappers in his pockets. And I'm not sure he threw a single piece of candy, but I quickly discovered the real secret to why they were loving the parade circuit.
You're going to get your dad's oversight on that. You're going to start rationing out the candy to the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to talk about another thing that obviously prepared you for the campaign trail, probably where most of America got to know you, as President Trump's press secretary. What an experience that had to have been.
I like to say, I hope it is the hardest job that I'll ever have, but it was also one of the best and most incredible experiences I could have ever imagined. I was there for 2.5 years. I came in with the president on the first day. And baptized by fire is the understatement of the century. So I did my first big on-camera briefing was the day after James Comey was fired.
Oh my! I forgot about that.
I was the deputy press secretary at the time, and quickly took on the full-time job shortly after that. But
how does that work? How does that work? Like, you're sitting around the press room, and you had Spicer. I think you even had Scaramucci involved in that. They're like, Sarah, you got this one.
Yeah. Well, Sean was on Navy duty. He had a ton of backup time from the campaign, and so he was going to take Navy duty. And over that time frame, the president, decides to fire Comey. And I was like, well, should we call Sean? The president's like, no, Sarah, you got it. You're fine. And get out there. And one of his favorite lines when he knew it was going to be really difficult was, Sarah, have a good time. And I was like, have a good time.
How is it possible to have a good time? You've met these people, right?
Yeah, it was basically like covering your body in a dress made out of steak and walking into a room full of wolves and hoping to come out alive.
But it felt like at that point, every single day had to have been a little bit like that.
It was, and that was part of the, drive a little bit, is because we could see our team firsthand every single day just how out of control and out of touch the liberal media had become.
Yeah.
And making sure we were pushing back and fighting back was really important, not just to the president, but it became personal for a lot of us on the team, because we experienced their wrath and their anger and just their distaste for all of us on the daily basis. And so,
which is amazing, right? And dealing with that in a professional capacity. Look, one of the things that I appreciated most about you is when you took that job, you were able to handle them with respect and professionalism, despite the fact that none of them had any respect or professionalism back.
Yeah, I will say there were a couple bright spots of decent people in the room, but I never named their names because I don't want to ruin their careers by saying something nice about them. But there were a handful, they know who they were, that were, pretty good to work with and actually just wanted to do a good job. But they were certainly the exception, not the rule. When you have a reporter that questions a Southern woman's ability to bake a pie over a holiday.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Treat. Yeah.
I forgot about that. They actually questioned whether or not you were able to make a pie.
Yeah. April Ryan, she's a real gem. I posted a picture on Thanksgiving, and I was with my husband's family in Kansas of this, perfectly cooked pecan pie, which is sort of my specialty. You'll be happy to know it's a bourbon chocolate pecan pie.
Thank you.
And my dad, I'm still convincing him like 10 years later that the bourbon cooks out. So I always have to make a different pie for just my dad that doesn't have the bourbon in it, because he's yet to believe me that it cooks out. He thinks he can taste it. So, but I post this picture, And she, immediately pushes out a tweet saying that, I hadn't made the pie. And then, of course, like, I double down and tell her, you know what, I'll do you one better. Not only did I make this one, but I'll make one for you. And so at Christmas time, I baked like 6, and I posted the whole process on Twitter, from the ingredients sitting out on the counter to the mixing in the bowl to the pies in the oven. And then I brought them to the White House, to the press pool, and she refused to even eat my pie. She was afraid I had somehow done something to her. I had, most people were happy to join in, but she still refused to take my gesture as anything but a nice thing.
I love you showed your work too. What a classic slapback. So was she the worst? I mean, I got to imagine Acosta ranks right up there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard to narrow down to the very worst. You almost need at least like 10 slots, but Acosta is certainly, at the top of that list. One of my favorite things. So right after we had taken Acosta's press pass away, it was kind of, I mean, there was a little joy in that, I have to be honest, but it was hilarious when all these reporters come to our office, to the White House press office, and they're like, why did you guys do this? Now you're going to make us defend Acosta. They didn't like him either.
Well, he was just insufferable, right? I mean, it's impossible. Even if you are, and there are very few, as you said, but even if you are a well-intentioned member of the press, watching that guy grandstand every day during the Trump administration had to have been the worst.
It really was. I mean, every time he got up, it was like he was giving, a 15-minute monologue. And you're wondering, Jim, is there a question here? Because he had to have his moment in the sun. And people all the time ask me, they'd be like, Sarah, why do you even call on him? Just ignore him. I'm like, no, because the American people need to know what we're up against. They need to see how crazy and how out of touch a lot of the people in the media have become. And if he's going to be the face, we're more than happy to let him.
Yeah. Well done too, because of everything that definitely came through in Technicolor. I mean, I think we started Hack Madness in large part in response to your elevating these guys and showing them for what they were.
Yeah, well, I love following along, and I'm glad to see that Jennifer Rubin always makes it pretty far into the tournament, because my favorite types of hypocrites are the ones that mask themselves in conservatism, but have no idea what it really means. And she's got to be at the top of that list of trying to wave her conservative flag, yet constantly attacking the people who are out there defending conservative values on the daily basis.
Which was somewhat, I mean, I guess this has been going on forever, but it seemed like it just sort of came to an apex in the Trump administration. I know you, like me, probably had a lot of friends you thought were conservatives along the way, and you all thought you were sort of fighting for the same things. And then you get in the middle of the Trump administration and all these people are shooting at you. That had to have been a weird feeling.
Yeah, people that you'd known forever, that all of a sudden, ideologically you think you're aligned.
Right.
And we're out there, taking shot after shot after shot, and nobody steps up to defend you. Particularly in some of those spaces. It was surprising, but it was also very revealing. And I think it prepared a lot of us to take on difficult challenges day after day and learn, not to back down and not to shy away from who we are. Yeah,
no, well said. And one of the things I think translated really well from your tenure as press secretary is, I mean, look, any way you cut it, President Trump had a very unconventional operation, right?
To say the least, yes.
and you came from sort of a nuts and bolts understanding of politics, how it ought to be, done. And he clearly went in an entirely different direction. And yet there was no real separation. You felt the continuity during your tenure felt like you were sort of all on the same page at the same time. That had to have been like a personal relationship, your ability to sort of read what he wanted, right?
Absolutely. I had a great relationship with the president, still maintain a good relationship. And, it's funny. I'll never forget one day I'm walking out of the Oval Office, and the president had put out a more colorful tweet that day, and we're kind of talking through different responses and things about it, and we're stepping out, and I bump into Jared Kushner, and he said, "Sarah, I finally get it." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I've always wondered how you just stay kind of even kill and calm, and something happens and your feathers don't get all ruffled." And he said, "I just saw your dad's Twitter feed for the first time." He goes, "He's got some really hot takes out there." And I was like, "Yes." I said, "Very different personalities, very different people. But my dad is very much a say what he believes and thinks, regardless of what anybody else might be saying he should say." And that was great preparation. He is known for a hot one-liner. And it certainly helped prepare me in that way. But, that personal relationship, I think, with both the president as well as the staff, I have lifelong friends that I made during the administration. Anytime that you're going through sort of the battle in the trenches that we were, you find out very quickly who your friends are. And I made some amazing friends during that process. And we really worked hard and worked closely together. And that, along with a really good relationship with the president, understanding what he wanted and what my job was. People would say, "Tell him to stop doing this and that." I'd be like, "You know what? A quick reminder here. Nobody elected me to anything. Right. They elected Donald Trump. And my job is to go out and tell his story and tell his message." And so understanding what my role was in that job, and having that relationship with the president, I think is what allowed me to do that job and hopefully do it as well as I did for 2.5 years.
Well, what allowed you to succeed in some ways is having a good sense of humor too. I got to imagine. I got to imagine there were mornings where you sat back and just burst into laughter. Like, how the hell am I going to defend this one?
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things I feel like the president doesn't get credit for. Mm-hmm. He's one of the most fun, most charismatic, enjoyable people to be around. And if you have a sense of humor, you will love working for and with him because you're going to laugh all the time.
Yeah, no question. So you get out of the Trump administration. I imagine that most people, after enduring what you went through for 2.5 years, would be like, "All right, get me out of politics for a while. I got to reset the compass." But you didn't do that. You kind of went the other way with it and wanted to get more involved. Obviously, moved back to your home state, wanted to get involved at the highest level and run for governor. Tell me a little bit about that motivation.
For me, certainly I wanted a break from the nastiness of Washington and the intensity of the White House, but not a break from, what we set out to do and the objectives and the public service side of it. I love Arkansas. This is home for us. I was born and raised here. My 3 kids have all been born here. My husband and I started our marriage here. This is our home. And I love the state and I love the people, but I don't like what is happening in the country. And I felt like we had an opportunity to serve and an opportunity to fight back against some of the craziness coming out of Washington, because we knew what we were up against, because we've been fighting against it for a while. But we also needed somebody who had kind of that heart and vision and compassion and ability to lead, and felt like we were uniquely qualified to step into this role and serve and run. And so far, it's been a tremendous 1.5 years, and we think we're in a great position and to win big in November.
No question about it. Everybody's rooting you on from the sideline too. I'm curious, you mentioned the direction of this country, which I don't, where do you begin? Because basically everything the Biden administration has touched has turned to absolute, what. As you're talking to people, what's burning them up the most? I mean, I got to imagine inflation, the economy, but it's, I heard you over the weekend talking about education. What are people saying out there?
I think one of the biggest things that people are concerned about, and this touches every aspect of their life, whether it's their business, their healthcare, their kids' education, just how they engage with the community, is the fact that they feel like there is an out of control government that's trying to take over and make decisions for them that they have no business making. More than anything, we hear people, kind of that underlying theme of every one of those areas is people want their freedom back. and they don't want somebody coming in and telling them what they can and can't do that are decisions they should be making themselves about what is best for them, what is best for their family, what is best for their business. And the radical left and the Democrats in this country right now have a totally different view. I always say, for me, it's very simple. When people want to understand the differences of a Republican and a Democrat, I said, if you want somebody to make decisions about where your kids go to school, what kind of health care you're going to have, how you run your business, you're a Democrat. If you want to make decisions about those things yourself, then you're a Republican.
It's a pretty simple deal, isn't it? It's just, and what's happened over the last, year and a half, 2 years, is that all of that was sort of almost in a comic book characterization of what a liberal is, has actually come to fruition, right? I mean, these people have left no doubt whatsoever about their intention to just have the government run the lives of everybody.
Absolutely. And it's scary. Some of the ideas you see that they come up with, you'll read it on a front page somewhere and think, surely I'm looking at the Onion or the Bee. And then you realize, actually, no, this is the New York Times. And it's pretty astonishing to see the crazy ideas they're coming up with that they're trying to sell as mainstream policy.
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, look, as governor, you're going to have to deal with the downstream of all of that too, right? I mean, the stuff that's coming out of the federal government has put people that run states in a hell of a spot.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons the governor's races are so important. We have 36 governor's races across the country this year alone. And if we elect strong conservative governors to step up and fight back, but also create a coalition of those governors, I think it gives us a lot more power. We've got some incredible people that are running states right now, and being able to join in the forces with that is something I'm very much looking forward to.
Oh yeah, no, you're going to be a powerful force. We already have, I mean, you're not even governor yet. And we have people around the country that are begging for you to come and help them. And you've been helping out colleagues around the country.
Certainly trying to. I mean, obviously our focus is here at home in Arkansas and winning our race on November 8th. But as much as we can, have been out on the road campaigning for other conservatives and trying to help make sure we have strong majorities in the House, hopefully the Senate, and definitely in governors and state legislatures around the country.
Well, God bless you for doing the work. Listen, Sarah, I got 3 big questions for you. And these are the ones that people pay attention to. Knowing you.
No pressure, right? Everything else is junk up until right now.
Knowing you, the first one is going to be well thought out. If you could plan your last meal on earth, what would it be?
So definitely start with Arkansas cheese dip, not to be confused with what some people refer to as queso. Okay. In case you are not aware, cheese dip was invented in Arkansas. You can look it up. I know you guys love research. It's a fact.
Is a lofty claim.
It is, but it is a true one. I mean, it says it on the internet and everything. So how could it be wrong?
It's got to be right.
It's got to be right. So for sure, Arkansas cheese dip. And then I would go a little bit classic with steak. And everyone on my staff loves to make fun of me because I'm a big mac and cheese connoisseur. And they accuse me of, eating at the table with my children, which is partly true. But a steak probably that my dad cooked. With a side of mac and cheese. So certainly not on the healthy side, but very good. And I'd have a strong bourbon sitting on the table with me. So but don't tell my dad about that if you
about
could.
The bourbon.
Yeah, if you could leave that out, that'd be really great.
Yeah, nobody's going to hear this. Don't worry.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll keep it to ourselves. What was Mike Huckabee a grill dad? It sounds like he knows how to handle a steak.
He is really great when it comes to grilling, barbecuing. That's kind of his specialty item.
Oh, nice. Okay, I didn't know that. We learned something else new.
Yeah, when I was in college, I would come home and make him cook for all of my friends so that we could have at least one good meal about every month. And that was his specialty.
Oh, I'm sure he loved that. Bringing all your college friends home. What can go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So second question, if you never got into politics, right? I know it's almost impossible to imagine, given your life and career. But if you never got into it and you had this blue sky where you could do absolutely anything you wanted to do in life, what would it be?
So I know you're not technically allowed to pick two things, but I'm going to go with my first would be a travel photographer, which is totally out of the box, but I would love to just travel all over the world, my kids and a camera, and not an influencer, but like a, like National Geographic kind of thing.
It's an important distinction, Sarah.
Yeah, an important distinction. And then the next one, if he would let me, Coach Pittman of the Arkansas Razorbacks, I'd be happy to be his assistant. Like just a cheerleader, just an encourager, mostly just because I would then get to be on the field for all the games. And I think that would be really fun.
Well, they have that player personnel position, which basically just motivates people. I feel like you should be pretty good at that.
I mean, I feel like I could really thrive in a role like that. So if this whole governor thing doesn't work out, I hope you'll put in a good word for me to take on like team encourager.
I love that. That is great. And one of the better answers we've heard. That's fantastic. A little bit like being a middle relief pitcher, right? It's like not on you, but you're in the game anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I own all the gear. I can wear all the stuff. I'll be right there in the heat of the moment. But if things go bad, like I'm just there to help pick up the pieces.
And you can take an awesome picture when you win.
Exactly. Maybe I even get to dump the Gatorade every once in a while.
I love that. All right. So last question, and this is a little esoteric. I know you've heard it before, but for the benefit of our audience, we view every successful person as motivated by kind of one of two things: the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat. The thrill of victory person is the sunny optimist, are always charging up the hill to the next endeavor. The agony of defeat person, every success they've ever had lasts like 2 seconds, but any setback they've ever had, they carry around like a backpack and work that much harder to try to never repeat it or put themselves in a situation where they have a setback again. Sarah Sanders, where do you find yourself?
There's very few things I love more than winning. And I'm very competitive, but I have to say the agony of defeat, because I despise losing. And I will be very hard on myself. And whatever I did, I will make sure I never repeat. Very big about kind of analyzing, stepping back, looking at every little thing we could have done better or, avoided, and making sure I don't make that same mistake twice. So as much as I would love to say, oh, I'm all about, the sunny, optimistic victory, if I'm being totally honest, it's got to be the agony of defeat.
Well, that's what we aim for here on the Ruthless Variety Program, total honesty. And I believe we've gotten it all the way through here. Listen, Sarah, good luck with everything. If our listeners can help you out, do you have a website or anything that they can go to?
Absolutely. SarahForGovernor.com. Would love their help. And feel free to move to Arkansas. I know there's a lot of states out there like California that people are leaving, and we've been more than happy to welcome them here with a slice of pecan pie and maybe even a glass of bourbon.
Listen, you can add recruiting to your resume for
there
that
you
football
go.
program. I mean, that sounds like a good recruitment pitch to me. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Good luck out there, and let us know what we can do.
Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all having me on.